Bonjour à tous, bienvenue, hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Learn French with Madame. Today we are going to talk about our second main group of verbs in French, RE verbs. RE verbs is one of my favorite things to teach because I have a little helpful trick up my sleeve that helps us remember some of these conjugations. So let's go ahead and dive right in. As you can see, I have my notes sheet out in front of me. Up at the top, my title is RE verbs. And on the left, I drew a verb chart. So today we're going to use one of our verbs as an example and conjugate that verb. And then I'm also going to teach you some other verbs that are RE verbs, and you're going to have to know those meanings as well. All right, so let's dive right in. The first verb that I want to use as my example is the verb attendre. And attendre is the verb to wait. All right, to wait. And then I'm also going to write out how you say these verbs as well. So that way when you're at home, you can learn how to say these too. So this one is pronounced like a, and then ton, and then dre. So attendre. All right. So let's go ahead and let's do our steps to conjugating a verb. Hopefully you remember when we did ER verbs that the first step to conjugating a verb is to drop the ending. So in this case, RE verbs end in RE. So we're going to drop this RE first, and that's what we're left with is our stem. So let's go through and write our stem down for all of these verbs, all right? So we're just going to go through and write our stem down. Remember, we dropped that RE. So if you're taking notes at home too, you're going to want to make sure that you write these down. All right, so now we have our stems all written down. Our second step to conjugating a verb is to add on our new endings. And so this is where my trick kind of comes into play, where I tell you my helpful hint to remember part of these endings. So for the first half of our verb chart, so for this whole left-hand side, the trick helps us remember those first three conjugations for je, for tu, and for il, elle, on. So I like to pretend that I am on a ship, and my ship's name is the SS nothing. And that helps us remember those first three conjugations, because for je, you're going to add an S. So that's our first one. For tu, we're going to add an S. And for il, elle, on, we add nothing. So for the first three conjugations, that is your ship's name, SS nothing. So hopefully that will help you remember those first three conjugations if you can remember the name of your ship, the SS nothing. The nice thing about RE verbs is that you already know how to conjugate this right-hand side of the chart too, because it's the same endings as ER verbs. So if you remember those endings, you're already set. Remember the name of your ship and you'll be good to go. So just like with ER verbs, we're going to add ONS for new. Vous is always so easy because it ends in EZ. And for ELL plural, we're still going to add ENT just like we did for ER verbs. So this whole right-hand side are ER verb endings, and this left-hand side is the SS nothing. RE verbs really aren't that hard. The hardest thing about RE verbs is remembering what the verbs mean. So before we dive into learning what some new verbs mean, let's go through and write out how we say all of these verbs. So this one for je, we have attend. Okay? For tu, it's the same thing, attend. For il, elle, on, the same thing. So the first half of our chart's pretty easy so far, attend. For new, we're going to take this and add on to the end. Attend, don't. All right, so we have a, attend, and donc. Attendons. For vous, we say attendez. And this last one is pronounced a little bit of new and the singulars. We have attendre. Attendre. All right, so now we know how to say all of these for attendre. Let's talk about some RE verbs and their meanings. Another helpful thing to point out is that RE verbs always end in this R sound when they have RE at the end. So we had attendre, and other RE verbs that we're going to talk about will also end in that R sound. So the first verb that we're going to talk about is the verb entendre. Entendre. Entendre is the verb to hear. Like, I hear you say that, or I heard, if you want to talk in the past, a train. Our second verb that we're going to learn the meaning of today is the verb vendre. Vendre. And vendre is the verb to sell. Like, I am going to sell my bike when I'm older. Okay, la troisième verbe, the third verb, c'est le verbe répondre. Répondre. You should remember what répondre means, but if you don't, it's the verb to respond. And then in parentheses, I have a, which means to. So we have to respond, and then in parentheses, to. Like, I am going to respond to madame. Okay, quatrième, our fourth one is the verb perdre. Perdre is the verb to lose. Like, I am losing my game. I'm losing the basketball game. That's sad. Our fifth verb, cinquième, so our fifth verb, c'est le verbe rendre. Rendre is the verb to return. Like, I'm going to return to school. And our last verb for today, our sixth verb, is kind of playing off of rendre. It's rendre visite. So rendre visite means to visit, and rendre visite à means to visit someone. So rendre visite, to visit, and à is someone. Like, I would say, je rends visite à ma mère. I'm visiting my mom. Okay, so we have up here all of our verbs conjugated on the left-hand side with our new endings in blue. We have all of our verb meanings on the right-hand side with 6 new verbs that we learned their meanings of, and we know how to conjugate them because they conjugate just like our verb on the left, attendre. So overall today, we learned 7 new verbs, and we learned how to conjugate a whole new group. So going forward, there's only one more major group of verbs that you'll need to learn in French, and you probably won't learn that until your second year. But this is a really, really, really good start for learning all of those verbs in French. Hopefully, knowing the name of your boat, the SS nothing, helps you remember those first 3 verb endings, and knowing that the right-hand side for nous, vous, and il plural is the same as ER verbs. So really, we're only learning 3 new endings and 7 new verbs and their meanings. Si vous avez des questions, if you have any questions, n'oubliez pas, don't forget, vous pouvez m'envoyer un email. You can send me an email. Mais c'est tout pour aujourd'hui et à plus!